I'm bringing this to you is not just for you to love yourself better and not emotionally eat, but to also not have to escape from your day and find joy and playfulness and love again, especially for yourself. So I believe that this is how controlling leads to emotional eating. We try to control people. When I say something to Mike in a passive aggressive way, or if he's doing something and I have a helpful way to do it, even though he's a grown man who can cut up an onion all by himself, I might be saying, oh, that knife is better. Is that how much you want to put in there? And it's not just me doing it in the house, but I have to stay in my own lane and I have to focus on myself because I notice that change happens with everyone around me when I am working on myself. But when we control others, even with good intentions, this disconnection happens and I can see him shut down. And I see my kids, I can tell if I have overstepped in my advice, which I try not to do anymore. I'm open to them sharing with me when they want it, but I have been in the past not great with that, and it creates a resentment and a disconnection and shut down. So what does that do to me? That just makes me sad and want to cope, and I again am looking for whatever food is going to make me feel better immediately. You know, we want that happy hit. That our brains and our bodies are so smart. They know if they get that sugar, fat, salt, crunch, chocolate, ice cream, chips, whatever it is, the brain and the body know, ooh, that's going to bring me down for a minute. That's going to make me feel good, just like the glass of wine. And also that distance, when relationships feel distant, we're filling a gap. Because isn't that the most important thing in life is our relationships with people and connection? You know, God wants us to connect, love each other, be with each other, have joy. And when we fill that gap with food because we've created disconnection, then it's sad. We are filling a hole that can never be filled up. It's an emotional hole. It's not hunger. So we also feel guilt after the conflict. Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics because we feel guilt when we emotionally eat. We feel guilt when we, have this conflict. But I don't know if you're like me. I can be stubborn. So I'll have this conflict with someone. And I think deep down I know when it's my fault that I've created the conflict, but I justify it. Well, he did this and he did this. But the reality is, I created it and I could have been silent. Conflict, especially with family, leads to guilt, which triggers that need to comfort for food. Because again, what are we looking for? Safety, security. When we eat to comfort ourselves, we feel safe for the moment. We feel stable and secure for the moment because we're not really connected. But true safety and security is within ourselves, our relationship with God, for example, our spirituality, our family. True connection is not with that food. We can love it and enjoy it and have joy with food, but that's not the connection. And emotional eating becomes this quick fix to ease those feelings of failure in that conversation or disconnect. How many times have you said something and you're like, why couldn't I just be quiet for 2 seconds? I am so good at speaking without thinking. That is what I'm working on now, is to slow down, take a pause. Not everything that's up here in my head has to come out here from my mouth. And I have to really be careful with that and know that that's going to create disconnection, which again is going to make me want to eat more. So let's talk about why letting go is so hard and scary. You know, the fear of losing our identity or standing up for ourselves is really there and big, especially in midlife women. I don't know about you, but I was taught, that I had to stand up for myself. Women didn't get the same things that men got. I had to stand up for myself. And I remember my mom saying to me something when she got divorced about being self-sufficient. So I had a little bit of a low-level fear of not being self-sufficient. Had to go out there and get the corporate job and had to take care of myself, pay the bills, and also just doing things around the house with the kids. I felt as a parent a lot of times, mom, everybody goes to mom, and mom has to kind of take care of a lot of stuff here. And we are tied to our identities, as the caretaker, the fixer, the mom, the wife, the one that holds it all together. And we don't have to do that, but we play that game and we act like we know all the answers. And I was really guilty of feeling like I didn't know things. I always had this fear of looking dumb and looking like I wasn't academically smart. And so people would ask me things sometimes, and I would, instead of saying I really don't know the answer, I would sometimes try to answer the question instead of just being honest, because there was a fear of looking like I wasn't smart enough or good enough. Where does that come from? That comes from not feeling good enough when you are younger. Letting go is also scary because it feels like you're losing a piece of yourself. If I let go, then I'm losing a piece of Kim. What is your fear of letting go? Why is it so hard to let people just be who they are? Are they just going to get one over on you? Are they taking advantage of you? And I think it's all based in fear. Control is fear-based. It's not really necessary, but it's a coping mechanism to cover up our fear. Fear of losing identity, fear of losing control, fear of not being ourselves anymore. And it's also the fear of chaos. There's a belief that if we stop micromanaging our food and relationships or life, that everything's going to fall apart. If I stop tracking my food, then I'm just going to overeat. That's a disconnection with our bodies. We're not really listening, slowing down, having peace, having silence, and listening in. Same with our relationships. You know, we have this belief that if we don't micromanage it, it's going to get out of control and that person is going to take even more advantage of me. And I know that it was really hard. When Mike and I got married, we each had 2 kids. And so going from 2 to 4 kids, where everybody's different and trying to manage that chaos, was really challenging, especially when you parent in a different way. For any of you who have blended a family, you know that you feel like you've just lost complete control, especially when things come up and discipline has to be taken care of, or an ex is getting involved. It's just very scary. We feel like we have to control everything. And actually, those were times when I used wine and food to bring myself down. I really think that true peace, though, comes from trusting that things can unfold with flow without force. I have to say that's my faith, too. I have to trust that God has this plan and is going to help me through whatever feels so completely chaotic, because we go through this all the time. We never learn our lesson. There's always going to be moments that feel really chaotic, and we have to lean into the peace that we are given. Because I don't remember that. When things are peaceful, I forget about the times that are absolutely chaotic. And then when they show up, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? So here are the steps. Let's get to the steps so that you can make peace in your life. And because I think that is really one of the most amazing things when you build that inner peace. A really grounding morning routine is so important. Morning is magical. When we wake up, our cortisol's higher. Our body is more at peace. We haven't been hit by the world all day long. We haven't been hit up by other people. We are in a space where we can take advantage of the morning stillness, and starting intentionally. You get to do this whatever way brings you peace. Whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, quiet reflection, devotions. Some people, meditation and journaling is challenging, but I'll tell you, if you pick a 5 or 10 minute meditation, morning meditation on YouTube, put your headphones in and just let someone guide you through it. The first few times it might be challenging, but just letting that peace come into you, it's amazing. Any reading that makes you feel really, I do not do my self-development or my self-help books till later. I always do the more peaceful and reading the Bible. And journaling, I know, is hard for people. So if you do a meditation first, you do a reading first, then you have something to write down that you might want to look back at later in the day. And I know I will write down things that I learn in my devotion. I will write down how that applies to me in the day, because it always hits a nerve. It really does hit a nerve. But practice breathing and doing body scans to connect. And when I say that, breathing in and intentionally feeling the breath coming in, intentionally feeling the breath coming out. And feeling your body, understanding where you are when you're sitting there, feeling what your head and your forehead and your face and your neck and your arms and your legs and your feet on the ground. Feel all the body parts and get connected to your body. And this will also help connect you with your mind. But the thing that I find is I also find that the nervous system is so at play later in the day because the nervous system is so on fire after everything we've experienced that all these things bring it down. But here's my favorite, and you all know this. I love tapping. So I'll do the peaceful meditation. And not all of this happens every day because we have lives. We have to get on with things. I get that. But I do love tapping because there are some days I can't get myself quiet enough to do the meditation.